Hello there, I'm Kathy Wilson, and this video is about military members and veterans. And I wanted to make this video in particular and talk about you as a specific population because there are some ways that scammers target active military and veterans at various points in your military career. That they use those things to exploit you. And they're a little bit different than what a civilian might experience. And some of them, some civilians never would experience those things. So first, I want to talk about some aspects of being a member of the military that scammers use to exploit you with. So authority is one area. So many scams involve using an authority figure in order to get the person to do what they want. It's part of the lie, part of the manipulation. And with military and veterans, however, obeying authority has been so deeply ingrained through your training that this is an extra tool, so to speak, that these criminals can use against you. Obeying authority may be much more automatic for you than it might be for someone else. And unfortunately, these criminals are very good at finding places and ways that they can do that to people. So if this has happened to you, that might be one of the ways that the scammer, the criminal, took advantage and leveraged that part of who you are that made you successful in your career. They took advantage of that to steal from you. Another aspect that scammers may take advantage of is that frequently through your career, in between deployments, coming off of deployment, going back to civilian life, you are in unfamiliar circumstances. You might be in an unfamiliar place. Many aspects of what you're experiencing in that time of your career may be very unfamiliar, and this leaves you somewhat off center. You have to get your bearings. And so that uncertainty, we'll say, can be something that a criminal like this exploits. There might be things that are unfamiliar about the location where you are, such as how job searching works, something along those lines. And because you're not familiar with that yet, a scammer might take advantage of that. The person, correcting myself, you might be in a place where your relationships with your family are a little strained. Coming back to civilian life is so difficult. That transition, coming off of deployment, is difficult. You might have experienced things that you didn't want to see, that you didn't want to experience, and you're processing those while trying to be normal, whatever normal is. And it may be very difficult. And again, this leaves you distracted. Your attention might not be fully on everything you're doing at every moment in time. And because of that, that unfortunately ends up being a way that scammers, these criminals, can get a wedge in and take advantage of you and whatever circumstances are going on for you. One thing that a scammer might do, for instance, if they have your name and birth date, they might use some military terms that you drop your guard because they know the terminology. They might say, so if you've left the military now, you're a veteran, and they say, I'm looking at your DD-214 right here, and you put the wrong birthday on it, or something along those lines. Any way they can use social engineering to get more information from you or get you to drop your guard because they already seem to have the information, things of that nature. These are all, unfortunately, tools that they use. In addition to those things that scammers may use about you to take advantage of you and steal from you, your reactions to this happening might have a little extra component to them that are very painful. And I say that because the personality of someone who goes into the military is someone who sees themselves as strong. You're tough. This shouldn't happen to you, is what ultimately that leads to when a scam has happened to you. You want to be a protector. You joined the military to protect our country, and that wanting to be a protector is part of who you are. And if a scammer unfortunately succeeds in stealing from you, that could really shatter that part of your identity and how you see yourself. And I'm here to say that's still true. You still are that person, that protector, that person who's strong and tough. And use that knowledge to help yourself into and through the healing process. A couple of other things that may be parts of scams and fraud that are of particular concern if you have been or are in active military are your security clearance. If you need to maintain your security clearance, this adds a level of anxiety and stress that is different than civilians. And so speaking with someone who you trust very much about whether to report, what other things you may need to consider to protect your security clearance, to maintain that might be important for you. So keep that in mind. And then one other aspect of scams and fraud that affects the military more than it may civilians is the fact that many military members, active or veteran, many have their identities stolen online for scammers to use to scam other people. This adds an aspect of perhaps moral injury. There may be a part of you that feels somewhat responsible and you're not. But keeping in mind that this adds another level of injury to you, however you define it, it is extremely difficult to overcome. And so I say all of these things to validate that for you and to hopefully help you get into the healing process, whatever that looks like for you, and to take care of yourself in that way. Thank you for your service, and I hope this video is helpful to you. Hello there, it's me again. You might have thought the video was done, but no. I thought I should add a couple of points to clarify what I said before, and also there's one add-on concern that may be helpful to you. So the clarifying piece is that when I mentioned social engineering earlier in this video, what I'm meaning by that is that a scammer might approach you and act as if they are official military or one of the organizations or services that supports military and veterans, and use the shared military jargon. So using the language that you're very familiar with and makes them sound like they're affiliated with the military. When they use that kind of language, that's one form of social engineering. So that was what I meant by that piece. And then if you've already, and this is kind of obvious, but I thought it would be worth mentioning to you. If you've already reached out to a certain department for a service, for information, etc., then if you receive a call back, even if it sounds a little strange, it makes it more likely that it's legitimate because you reached out first. I don't think I can say that 100%. So you still need to be skeptical and cautious with everything. But, in these particular examples that I'm giving you, absolutely stay skeptical. ask to call them back if you are wondering at all if this person might be not be official. Sorry, I'm stuttering. And but just keep that in mind, that if you already reached out, that's a factor to make it more likely to be legitimate. And then before I leave that part, one of the organizations that some scammers will pose as is charities that have to do with the military. So be extra skeptical and cautious when that's the case, because typically those organizations wouldn't be reaching out to you. And then, so the add-on. So I mentioned a lot of examples of how scammers might try to steal from you as a military member or a veteran. They also target family and especially spouses, and perhaps even especially when you're on deployment. So they may reach out to your spouse and with a romance, and I know that might be hard to hear. It might be a romance scammer, but a lot of times scammers will try friendship and befriending a person first, and then move into an investment scheme, usually cryptocurrency, or some other form of needing money and getting your spouse to send money. It's a long game, right? They build the relationship first and then ask. So letting your spouse, your family, to listen to this video and talk about the different forms scams may take, that would be a good idea. And I'll add one other aspect to a potential romance scam with a spouse that's waiting while you're on deployment, and that is sextortion. Scammers often incorporate a form of sextortion by getting the person to send nude photos, and then they have something that they can blackmail them, for lack of a better word. They can blackmail them into sending money with the idea that they would send those photos to you, and then you would know what had been happening. So keeping that in mind too is important, even though it's a very ugly idea to think about. That's it. Wanted to add on those things, and thank you so much for listening.